Hi there, it's Shelley here. I am a productivity and mindset coach for midlife entrepreneurs, and I'm here today to talk about 8 productivity tips for work at home entrepreneurs. Okay, first of all, when you work at home, your first tip in order to be productive is to set very, very clear, specific goals. None of these vague, hazy goals that I hope I get this done. Set very clear goals. For example, if you are writing a book, you want to tell yourself, set your goal, I want to have this book finished by the end of December of this year. That's very clear, it's very specific. And having clear and specific goals allows you to then break your goal up into little chunks or little milestones. If your goal is to have a book finished by the end of December, then you can say to yourself, okay, in order to make that happen, I need to have all of the chapters outlined by this date. Then I need to have chapters 1 through 5 written by this next date. Chapters 6 through 10 by the next date. And then at a certain date, I need to have a cover design or designer picked out. By a certain date, I need to have this ready to go to the proofreaders and to the editors. That way you've taken this big goal that's very specific with a deadline and you've broken it down into little pieces. You're much more likely to achieve that goal of writing the book than if you just say, I want to write a book. So that's tip number 1. Set very clear, specific goals. Tip number 2 to be productive is use the 3 Ds. Well, what are the 3 Ds? The 3 Ds are do, delegate, and defer. So when you're looking at your work task, because when you work at home, there's always more things to do than there is time. The first thing is to look at a task and decide, is this something that I just need to do, and do I need to do this myself? It might be a case of some tasks can be delegated and done better by someone else. For example, if you hate keeping books, if you hate sending invoices, if you hate doing social media or coming up with graphics, those may be tasks that would be better off delegated to someone else, someone who can do them quicker, easier. It may be cheaper for you to hire that out because they can do it so much faster than you can, and you're not pulling your hair out doing tasks that you don't like to do. And then the next one is defer. Some tasks need to be done, but they don't have to be done right this minute. So use the 3 Ds: do, delegate, and defer. But actually, there really and truly is a 4th D, and that is dump. Let's be honest. Just because you can do a task and it could be done doesn't mean it needs to be done. Some tasks we really come up with and put on our list that truly end up being more busy work and making us feel like we're being productive when they're really not task moving us forward. So use those to help determine what task you need to do. Tip number 3 is to consider what is the return on investment for certain tasks. Some tasks that you can do will pay off in terms of accomplishing a goal, or maybe helping you meet a sales quota, or finish a project for a client. Those would be high ROI tasks. Some tasks, though, have very little return on investment. You may be putting a lot more in terms of time, energy, and money than you're actually getting out of the task being completed. Anytime you start to work on a task, ask yourself, is this a task that has a high ROI, or is it a task that has a low ROI? You want to consider that return on investment of your time, your energy, your money. Tip number 4 is to use the Eisenhower matrix. Now, the Eisenhower matrix, whether you know the name of this or not, I know you've seen it. The Eisenhower matrix is that cute little box that's divided up into the 4 quadrants, and on one axis is the word urgent, and on the other axis is the term important, and that divides your task up into how important and how urgent they are. Now, for example, quadrant 1 is the quadrant where things in there are urgent, and important. This is the quadrant of, oh my gosh, we've got to do this now. It's like a deadline, it's like an emergency, something is due right this minute, or something has broken, or something has come up unexpectedly. But tasks and activities that fall into quadrant 1 are those tasks and things that are screaming at you that must be done now. And truthfully, living in quadrant 1 and working in quadrant 1 tends to be very stressful because of those the urgency and importance of those activities. Those are not things you can put off. Those are the things that must get done now. Quadrant 2 is the quadrant of not urgent but important. Now, this is a quadrant that's very easy to put things off because of the lack of urgency. But in truth, this is the quadrant where you should spend most of your time, and that is working on activities that are important. For example, planning, developing strategy, working on long-term projects and long-term goals. In other words, these are the things that actually move you forward and help you achieve those business goals, even if they're not screaming at you that they must be done right away. So quadrant 2 is ideally where you should spend most of your time working on the important task, even though they're not the urgent, got to do it right this minute task. Quadrant 3 is the quadrant of activities that are urgent. They need to get done. They've got a deadline, but they're really not that important perhaps in the grand scheme of your business. For example, spending time on social media can be something that is urgent if you need to respond, for example, to direct messages from Instagram, you need to respond to comments from a YouTube video, you need to respond to things that have happened on Facebook or some other platform that you work on. They may perhaps not be the most important thing in moving your business forward, but there is an urgency associated because someone has sent you a message and they're expecting a response in a timely fashion. Then quadrant 4 is the quadrant where things are not urgent and they're not that important. Again, if you're considering the 3 Ds, this would be the quadrant of the stuff that you really need to just dump, or you need to only do it when you have truly planned some downtime, some free time that you can just kind of waste time doing those things. This would be things like scrolling social media, just kind of for the fun of it, just to kind of, peruse the platform to get a feel for what's going on. But these are not the things that you need to put priority on when you are actually sitting down at your desk to get your work done. So using that Eisenhower matrix can help you make a critical analysis of what tasks need to be done when and how you need to schedule them. Tip number 5 is to realize not all tasks are created equal. Just because something can be done doesn't mean that it should be done. You need to always ask yourself, is this a task, a project, or an activity that is going to move my business forward, that's going to help me achieve those business goals that I have set? Is it going to help me gain more clients? Is it going to help me finish those projects that are going to move my business in the right direction? So always ask yourself, is this an important task? Because again, they're just not all created equal. Tip number 6 is to choose the right planning system. Now, I don't know anybody that works at home or that works in the corporate world, professional world for that case, who can balance a lot of different tasks without some kind of planning system. The question here then becomes whether you prefer to use paper to manage your planning, or whether you prefer digital, or whether you're a combination. A lot of us are combination. Now, I tend to be more of a paper girl from way back, but that's just a personal preference. I do use digital. I use Trello. I've just discovered Asana, and I'm very anxious to spend some time learning that. But I also enjoy and like to write things down because I am a little bit out of sight, out of mind, and I like to be able to have those. So important to choose the planning system that works for you. And there's no right or wrong on that. The most effective planning system for you is the one that you will use religiously, that you will refer to several times a day. Tip number 7 is to plan and schedule like your life depends on it. Now, your life may not depend on it, but your business may. So it is extremely important that you be able to set those tasks out, plan for how you're going to get them done, plan when you're going to get them done, and schedule time in your calendar to actually get those things done. And then tip number 8, and sometimes this is the hardest one, productivity tip number 8 is to do the work even when you do not feel like it. And when you work at home, there are always other things competing for your attention. There's always dishes in the sink. There's always laundry that could be moved over. You know, the things going on in the world right now sometimes just may have us feeling like, I just don't want to do this. But when you work for yourself and when you work from home, there's not a boss standing over you, except maybe clients. But when you work from home, you have to be able to tell yourself, nope, I don't feel like doing this, but I have to do this if I want to achieve my goals and move my business forward. So it gets down to, do you want your business to succeed badly enough that you will get off the sofa, go to the office, go to the computer, sit down, and get in the frame of mind that I'm going to do this work, even though I might rather paint my nails or watch Netflix or HGTV or something else. In the meantime, folks, as you work at home, keep this in mind. Remember, you've all heard the saying, Rome wasn't built in a day, and that's very true. But what they don't always tell you is that Rome was built brick at a time. So the key to productivity is to keep laying those bricks that are the foundation that do all of those tasks to help move us forward. So have a wonderful week. In the meantime, go lay a brick. If you like this video and found it helpful, I would love it if you would hit the like button or if you would subscribe to this channel, and please tell your friends about it.